using discomfort as a tool. I think that's the number one thing that people choose not to glorify about making things on your own or making things as an entrepreneur, or not being, a typical salaried employee, is that you have to find a way to enjoy discomfort.
Unconventional Life, the show where I interview successful entrepreneurs, creatives, and thought leaders on how they earn their living in non-traditional ways. We will explore how they took the path less traveled, what their revenue model looks like, and why they are prioritizing their passion over their paycheck. I'm your host, Jewel Schroeder. Unconventional Life, welcome. This is your host, Jewel Schroeder, tuning in today in studio in Boulder, Colorado. Today's guest is joining me. We've got Charlie Carlisle in the house. Charlie, are you ready to take us down the path less traveled?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you on the show. Unconventional Lifers. Charlie is the co-founder of Rorra, which is a water filtration company. I know the products that you've been doing have really been designed lifestyle first. I know you're also a Colorado native, serial entrepreneur. You're a co-founder, Brian. I personally, Unconventional Lifers, have actually gotten to try the product, which is amazing. Also, make sure to stay tuned to the end of the episode. We've got a great giveaway coming up that we'll talk about there. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about, yourself, what it's like in your world, and a little bit of the inspiration behind Rorra.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, frankly, my whole life I've been interested in starting and running companies since I was a little kid, kind of working on pet care businesses, car detailing businesses, and all the way now through having exited one business and are now into our second act, Brian and I running Rorra together. But we really got into Rorra because we identified a problem. Brian at the time was a young father. He'd had his first daughter shortly after we sold Love Your Melon, and she developed eczema pretty quickly after birth, and they couldn't figure what was going on. They tried different creams, changed her clothes, changed her diet, but ultimately when they installed a pretty rudimentary filter on her bathing water, her skin started clearing up.
Wow.
And so Brian, calls me. He's like, "Hey, what do you think about water? We've never really thought about what our next act, what our next business would be after this. But would this be interesting?" And so we spent the next, 6 months finding industry advisors, really talented people that are coming from the water filtration industry to get us up to speed. And we kind of formulated this plan to build a Dyson style business in water filtration, which historically, and if you go on and shop water filters most of the time, it's kind of one plastic product after the next. They make really bold marketing claims with a lot of data to back it up. And frankly, they're not designed to work very well. And we wanted to address all of those issues and build really beautiful, functional products for people that, to your point, would fit seamlessly into their lives and deliver excellent water.
So great. I remember receiving the Rorra, which came in the mail, and I was Unconventional. I was in Nashville at the time, and it's a really beautiful system. And I remember when we were first talking, and I think introduced through a mutual friend and former podcast guest, we were talking about water and how not all filtration systems are created equal. And I know you guys have spent a lot of time really getting to the source of what makes good water, and also even the benefits of what water is. And when you think about it, like, we're literally composed of almost water. So I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way that we look at clean water and consuming water is that it's probably the number one thing your body takes in and changes out on a daily basis. Average person drinking between half gallon and a gallon of water per day. If you think about every other consumption choice that we make, whether it's food or other products going into our bodies like supplements, like nothing even comes close to that quantity. So it's really important that when you're drinking water, that you're drinking clean water and you're not putting more contaminants into your body that will bioaccumulate over time. Particularly of note is lead, PFAS chemicals, microplastics, things that once they're in are really hard to get out and can be extremely harmful for, especially for children, for developmental reasons. So when we started building our technology and our products, particularly for drinking water applications, we really wanted to make sure we addressed the contaminants that had a high degree of bioaccumulation and that would be really harmful if we didn't prevent them from getting in.
Yeah.
So that's our lens by which we think through drinking water, and water usage in general, is trying to, at the point of consumption, control for as many contaminants as we can to reduce as many as we can to create better water.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know especially like a lot of the biohackers wellness advantage, people are talking about water, structured water, hydrogen water, all this stuff about water. What do you think most people don't understand about water, and particularly what, especially listening to this episode, they could take away?
It's a really interesting question because some of the stuff that you listed is somewhat difficult to validate scientifically.
Yeah.
We obviously,
Yeah.
with what we build, we are really focused on things that you can calculate and track in a lab down to parts per billion or parts per trillion, meaningfully what good we are at removing contaminants from the water. But for I would say one thing that not a lot of people recognize about water that is super important is the mineral content of water. Historically, reverse osmosis has been kind of a very common term in our industry, a very common technology used in our industry for purifying water that does work quite well. It'll take your water basically down to zero absolute content, meaning that it's functionally distilled.
Sure.
Distilled water, zero mineral content, zero contaminants. But when you ingest that water without remineralizing it, it'll actually have a demineralizing effect on a lot of your body tissues, bones, and other stuff in your body. So I think one thing that people might not really recognize as importance in water is the mineral content of it. And when we built our first product, the countertop system, we wanted to make sure the filtration technology that we were going to implement would preserve mineral content, because it does have those really important biological and physiological uses that some people might not be getting if they're drinking other kinds of purified water.
Yeah, that makes sense. Many of our listeners know I've navigated all kinds of health stuffs over the years, whether it was, autoimmune or Lyme's and various different things. And that's when I first became really fascinated with water and also recognizing what water did for my health or what it didn't do for my health. And coming back to your point with the mineral, like I would find that some days I would actually be drinking water, but not absorbing the water and ending up like actually dehydrating myself more. So learning how to actually have mineral content was important. And I would not have known that until then.
Absolutely. And it just tastes better.
Yeah, for sure.
The most expensive bottled waters on earth, like Gerolsteiner and other ones from Europe, like they have really high mineral content. It's because minerals make the water taste like something. Without minerals, it's super flat tasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, zooming out a little bit, I'd love to kind of go back to your story. And I know, you've been a serial entrepreneur. If we were a fly on the wall, what would have been some of these snapshots that we would have seen in Charlie's life that ultimately has, led you to this current venture?
That is a good question. I think first scene would be growing up with parents who are highly entrepreneurial and are either currently active entrepreneurs or were formerly entrepreneurs. Both my mom and stepdad have built really wonderful businesses during their lifetimes, and as I was growing up, I got to watch them do that and be impressioned by that.
Yeah.
Building things in their view almost, or in the spirit of what they were making and I was experiencing. So that'd be number one. Number two is probably in college. I was a finance major at University of Denver. I thought most of my life like I would start in investment banking and go into a different field after that, after a stint in that industry. But I got an opportunity in college right before I went for study abroad to be in that environment for 3 months over the summer, and I did not find personal resonance with that particular career path. So from then on, I really started getting more interested into being more serious about being a full-blown entrepreneur, being in the startup ecosystem in Colorado, and starting to build businesses that had real potential lasting value.
Yeah.
I'd say those are probably the two inflection points. The rest is kind of following that path.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to talk about that second one, I think a lot of times, people get education, whether, it's finance. I was even talking earlier about my sister and her husband. They just moved over here from Belgium. He's been an engineer in Belgium for a long time. Huge outdoor guy, big passion for taking people out, in the backcountry doing these adventures. And now he's at this intersection where his education in Europe does not correlate to the education in the same way, here in the States. And so he's like, what do I do? Do I just continue this path, or do I start this business? And I think a lot of our listeners are very much in similar transitions, different details. It might not be career, it could be another component of your life. When you chose to kind of pursue and lean into that startup, I think a lot of times people think about, well, what's the first step and how do I even get plugged in? Any perspective you can offer there?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. One, it's important to work on stuff that you have an obsession over. Particularly if you're going to be working for yourself, you need to be working in an industry that you actually have a high degree of personal alignment and passion for. Otherwise, you will burn out. That's just a reality. Like the people that go and try and start a business to chase money, you will burn out of it and eventually probably fail at it. I mean, it's not 100% certainty, but it is certainly higher than 50%. That's not to say that you can't go work a job before starting your own thing that you don't love in order to learn good skills. I think there's a dichotomy there between being passionate about something and not impassionate about something, in order to get that trait of skills. But number one, work on a problem that you really are interested in, that you will obsess about, and that you feel confident that you could be building for 5 years in. And number two, probably equally important, is find at least one person that you love to build it with. I think that we kind of glorify the solopreneur in the United States and media in a lot of ways, but by far and away, in my life, where I've actually found success in different ventures, has been when I'm building them with someone that I really love and trust. And in building Rorra, I'm working with my co-founder, Brian. We've worked together on and off for almost a decade now, in multiple different businesses. And that having someone like him that I can be building with, that I really do love and trust as a person, lets you, when you're down, there's always someone to pick you up. Sure. And when something's wrong on your side of the business, something's going right over there, and vice versa. And I think that what you're working on, the longevity of working on it, and who you're working with, are probably the most important variables.
Yeah, well said. Unconventional Lifers, we're going to get into the rapid fire round here shortly. Stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about that giveaway just after that. But just to your point, around finding somebody that you enjoy doing stuff with. And for me, I think I call it the 11 effect, where two people, the one and one, come together and it equals a greater sum than they could have on their own. I've seen that. I run 3 different companies. Many of our listeners know Unconventional Life. We do these events. I also have a company called Wild Global, which I run with another business partner. And then we've got Pink Lemon, which is I run with my sister's creative marketing agency. And having those people, or the structures within those different verticals, it calls what I call a structure for fulfillment. So it doesn't let me off the hook. I don't live and die by how I feel that day. I'm motivated. I'm not motivated.
Right.
There is this, call to actually show up to it, but be the fun factor and the celebration of what you're doing, and just kind of the we closed a sale, or whoa, we figured this out. Or on the flip side, wow, today kind of sucked, but hey, we're not out, we're just taking a breather, makes such a difference. Oh, yeah. And there's a lot, I think, of dynamics, right? And especially if working with my sisters, or you work with a close friend, that, I think my parents' generation was don't, do business with your friends, or whatever that saying was. I think it's shifted in terms of how we can look at who we create with, how we create. Any perspective from what you've learned with Charlie, and especially a decade, and maybe other collaborators, for our listeners, that if they're looking to find somebody, what they could keep in mind?
I think it's one important thing is just trust. Working with someone that you do have trust with, particularly when you're founding something like that. It's sometimes hard to work with friends and family, but those are also two pools of talent that will enable you to have an element of trust. That's first and foremost. Second one would be complementary skill sets. I think that I similarly feel fortunate in our current co-founder relationship in Rorra, because we cover each other's blind spots. My whole world is things that you can touch, from engineering and design through supply chain setup and fulfillment, customer service. Those are all the teams that roll up to me. Those are all the efforts that I'm focused on, and those are all the things that I do. And similarly, Brian's focused on everything that you can't touch, all of our digital presence, all of our web design, all of our revenue generating channels, marketing. Those are skill sets I don't have. And I heavily rely on him and trust him to do those job functions at an extremely high level. Yeah. So I think it's trust, and then having someone that can cover some of the blind spots for you skill wise, so that you can go pretty far together before you need additional people.
Yeah, well said. Taking that just a step further, looking at even the structures that you keep in your life. I think entrepreneurship, in my own experience, especially if you've been at it for a decade, and I've been at it, oh my goodness, probably 18 years at this point, it has different seasons and different cycles. How do you keep your endurance and your stamina through that? And what have you learned along the way?
That's a really good question. I think the first thing is anticipate the friction. So when we launched Rorra, I think it was November of 2024, so a little over a year ago. 2 months before launch through 4 months after launch, we were scaling like crazy, trying to get a lot of things done and polished so that we could, launch this business, launch our first product. And that commitment of doing all of those things and scaling rapidly without having a lot of help is super wearing on you. But we went into that period of time knowing that it was coming, because we've been there before, and mentally preparing ourselves to deal with that. Once you're on the other side of those really challenging, weeks and months where you're working pretty much nonstop, I think it's really important also to take hard breaks. So I got to go do a really awesome backcountry ski trip with two of my very close friends in Italy for 10 days
Awesome.
in May of last year, or May of 25. So that was kind of at the tail end of this really big scale crunch and resourcing crunch. And I got to pretty much unplug for like a week.
Wow.
And I think experiences like that are really important, whether you're taking them around the holidays or you're taking them at any point in the year. Like I think people that just keep grinding nonstop without taking a little bit of time away and going pencils down for a little bit do have a tendency to burn out a lot faster.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've definitely seen that in my own life, and also recognizing like when those cycles occur, right? Like when it's time to like put your head down and grind, when it's time to take a break, when it's time. I think some of like, even with working out or anything that you're doing, it's like in your off season, when you come back, you can be stronger. You can be more focused.
100%. Even if it's just even if it's just a day sometimes, like just going dark for a day can mean a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, let's jump into the rapid fire round. I got a series of lightning questions for you. And then on Unconventional Livers, we're going to talk about this giveaway just after that. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Question number 1, fill in the blank. Speaking about yourself. If you really knew me, you would know what?
I am resourceful. I would say that's like a common quality that people would probably say about me.
Yeah, love that. Next question. What is one practice that you do regularly that you feel sets you up for success?
Sleeping, sweating, and drinking clean water. That's kind of combined, but like working out, sauna, getting good sleep, and then drinking filtered water.
Yeah. Any magic sleep number or just?
My favorite is when I can do the nature alarm,
which
is like going to sleep early enough in the night where you don't have to have an alarm for your body to naturally wake up. Usually for me, that's between 7 and 8 hours.
Yeah. Amazing. Love that. Next question. What is one place that you've gotten to explore recently? Could be, close by or far, that you feel like most people don't know about and maybe should.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Through this business, I have gotten to spend a lot of time in Hong Kong and mainland China for various supply chain reasons. And I think those are two places that aren't really very high up on a lot of Americans' lists of places to visit, but Hong Kong is super approachable. It's very Western. The food's unbelievable. The people are super nice. And it's beautiful. And I would say that everyone should add that to their destination list. And mainland China, if you want to get a little bit more exotic, and you can find someone probably to translate for you, because it can be difficult to get around depending on where you are once you're over the bridge. Still really cool, still very eye-opening, and would recommend.
Yeah, I love that. I actually had a friend and a client who is Chinese, and she was doing these retreats called Homecoming, taking people back to China. And she would take groups of like 10 to 15, and the stories and even the content she shared were like extraordinary.
It's crazy.
So yeah, I had like thoughts of unconventional life in China, but everyone's, people have different relationships to it. Why do you think there is such a perception around China?
Media, government, stigmas, and then everything that revolves around those things. But I think and so this is something I've observed being around the world, whether like I studied abroad in Ecuador, I've spent a lot of time in China now. I travel internationally, not just for fun. And I think pretty much everywhere people are very similar. I think governments and media can be different, but like human beings aren't that different. Everyone just wants to live a good life and raise a good family. Yeah.
Well said. Lastly, when you think about living the unconventional life, what does that mean to you?
Find a way to enjoy discomfort. And I think there's other practices that can influence that, like getting into endurance activities, getting into things that kind of put you in the pain cave, and then you can translate those skills into endurance and other elements of your life. But I would say that like using discomfort as a tool would be a very important thing in the unconventional life.
Yeah, well said. I always like to joke that the day that the conventional life, became life, or the unconventional became the conventional, like I would be out of business in the best way. And I think it really does take that discomfort, or I like to say holding the tension, that when we can hold the tension, we build capacity, and through that capacity, we grow. 100%. And even, if you think about like the astronauts that get trained to go into outer space, like they anticipate a moment where they're going to burn up, like in that rocket, knowing that it's coming, and they have to literally breathe through that, knowing that they're going into like the next galaxy. It's like, what would it be like to live your life knowing that you're going to burn up, or you're going to have the experience of things seemingly burning up, to know that like you're literally going to the next side. And
absolutely. It's crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, with that, Unconventional Lifers, we're going to talk about this giveaway in just a second. Before we do, I want to talk about, a little bit about Rorra and where it's at now. Tell us a little bit about, what our listeners can expect. I think Unconventional Lifers are going to enjoy where we're going next in this, but particularly how you've been able to grow this product-based business to the success that it's seen.
Yeah. first off was designing things from the ground up to be different. So our first product, the countertop system, 2.5 gallon gravity fed stainless steel system, inspired by some legacy products that have existed for decades, but refined in a way that not only makes them look wonderful on your countertop, but also makes them work incredibly well. And doing so very transparently. I think that's something that's uncommon in our industry, is that a lot of companies make very, very bold claims and don't really use data or any validated lab data to really back up what they're saying.
Sure.
And as we've built this business and every product that we've made and will continue to make, that's a huge element of what we do is testing it to an extreme degree and publishing all that data for people to see. So that's some things that separate us. I would also say just using stainless steel, high-end stainless steel materials is something that not a lot of other businesses do in our category.
Yeah.
And doing so is hard. It's, why setting up the supply chain for product was so difficult, is because the shapes of that product and the materials in that product are difficult to make. But they're worth it because they're designed to last for years of use, preventing a lot of other plastic waste and other waste that we know we can otherwise prevent by using materials like that. So, and least of which being microplastic leaching and other problems with using non-plastic material, using plastic materials instead of steel. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I would say another whole category is really working with wonderful people in health and wellness. We have a really close relationship with Andrew Huberman and his team now. We're a sponsor on the pod, and they're really wonderful to work with, and tons of other names in industry that we have partnerships with. And I think getting the buy-in and support from people like that really does give an element of social proof for our products, our business, our company, and our mission that is hard to come by. And I think that those relationships are part of the reason we've been able to accelerate growth as quickly as we have. But we're just getting started. I mean, where you see the business right now, as we were talking about before the pod, we've got 2 products in market. We have the countertop system and a filtered shower head. Both of those are great. Both of those are available for sale at Rorra.com right now. But beyond that, as we look at the next, 24 months of the business, there will be a lot more product and platforms that we're bringing to the market to serve a variety of consumers to help them get better water.
Yeah, I love that. Unconventional Lifers, we will link Rorra.com so you can check out all these products up at the show notes at unconventionallifeshow.com. And, it'll tie very nicely into this giveaway that we've got for one of these lucky listeners. Tell us what we're going to do for them.
Absolutely. So we're going to give one lucky listener a Rorra countertop system and as many filtered shower heads as they need to outfit their home. So we're going to call it the Home Outfitter Giveaway, but we couldn't be more excited to be partnering on this and can't wait to find a winner.
Yeah. Unconventional Lifers, what an amazing offer. You know the drill. Head over to unconventionallifeshow.com, click on the giveaway tab. As a reminder, giveaways are open 1 week after the episode airs. So make sure to catch us live every single Monday to not miss one of these giveaways. If you know you want to win this home outfitting system, the Rorra countertop, the shower heads, send us an email. Let us know why. We always love hearing from you. And some of you have some really great stories, and we'll let you know who the lucky winner is. And, for those that want to learn more about you, I know you do a lot of podcasts. You guys have a lot of great content and resources also available to educate people. What's the best place for people to follow along and stay in touch?
Definitely follow Rorra on social media. I think we're at Rorra Water on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And then Rorra.com. Sign up for our emails if you want to learn more about upcoming product, and definitely to learn more about your water. And me personally, I'm probably most active on Instagram. I don't really do much on Twitter and other platforms, but at Charlie Carlisle, you'll find me.
Amazing. We will link all of that. Rorra is Rorra, and we'll link all those links at the show notes at unconventionallifeshow.com. Before we close out our segment today, and thanks for being on with us and sharing all this great resources, I think a lot of our listeners, they feel these ideas inside of them. And sometimes, especially if it's a product or whatever it is, being able to even get to the very first prototype. And I remember we had another guest on the show, and he said one of the best advice he ever got is he wanted to make this supplement thing was just like, make it. Use it for yourself for like 30 days, put it in a product that inspires you, like VVV1. And I imagine Rorra and other things that you have done probably started in a similar but different way. And then you figure out all these pieces.
Oh, yeah.
For someone that's like, okay, I want to get started in that way, any last perspective that you can offer on where to take the steps? And I know it looks different in different industries, but just some words of encouragement for any of the listeners.
You can just do things. So just start somewhere, start making things, start I do this all the time outside of my pursuits at Rorra in various ways. My fiance can attest to this. I'm constantly cooking up some new idea or kind of side quest product that may or may not ever get commercialized. But take small swings at bat till you can't. Like try to get cheap MVPs. Try not to put your life savings on the line to develop a V1 of a concept. And also, too, I would say the biggest thing I would recommend to test an idea before you do it is to be willing. Can you put in 24 hours of research before you start? If you can do that, if you can maintain that level of interest for 24 cumulative hours over the course of a week, and come to some conclusion of your own that would be potentially, formulating a new supplement via ordering the raw materials off Amazon or from a lab. Like if you can really maintain interest for 24 hours over a couple days, such you have something unique to try, that's a good sign. And I think not enough people like are willing to actually put in the reading time, the synthesizing time, required to try it like that. They just live as like ideas in their head that they never really flush out.
Yeah, well said. Charlie, Carla, everyone, Unconventional Lifers, thanks so much for joining us for today's segment. Definitely check all those links up at the show notes at unconventionallifeshow.com. Charlie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.